After a spooky week 7 where everyone was hurt and 6 teams were on bye, we finally get back to some normalcy in week 8. Everyone is still hurt, but at least there are no teams on bye, and that means we're going to have a very large player pool and plenty of great options to help you build your DFS lineups. Let's do it. What is up? Welcome to DFS Academy, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. We record this show on Thursday night. I've mentioned that a bunch of times, like during halftime of the Thursday night game. And I'm always like, I want to say good evening, but most people listen to this on Friday morning. So good morning and happy weekend and happy Friday. With me as always, Kelly in Phoenix, 1 hour wind out already.
Yes, we've been hosting a Club Fantasy Unwind with WAF, Women of Fantasy Football. This is the second get together. So yes, I am 1 hour wind in, feeling spooky, ready to go.
I love it. She's wearing a Which Way to the Wine shirt for those who are just listening in right now. So she is fully festive, fully wined out. Shout out to our good friend Rachel at Tootsie Pop 6 for organizing this. If you're not following her, make sure you are. If you're not following Women of Fantasy Football at women_of_fantasy or FF, make sure you're following both of them. And make sure you're following my other co-host, Austin Amandolia. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. I wouldn't say I'm a an hour of whining, but I'm half a Sam Adamson, which I don't know where that went. Now that I'm looking around. Oh, it's Romeo. Found it.
So he's more than a half Sam Adamson. No, I'm joking.
No, but I'm good. I had a trip to Atlanta today, so I've done plenty for one day, but I'm excited to talk some DFS week 8.
This guy is all over the globe, or at least all over the southeastern United States. So,
it's like
all right, folks.
Circumference.
There you go. All right. So first and foremost, if you're not familiar with the show, Kelly is going to help you with GPP lineups. Austin is going to help you with cash lineups. We are going to have you covered from every base. We give you our best plays based on cash value. We go down the line. Typically, these guys are really good about working in a quarterback, a tight end, sometimes even a defense, because they care about you and they want to help you make some money. Not only do we talk about DFS, we give you an opportunity to play with us. You will find links in the description of this video for a $2 contest on DraftKings and a $2 contest on FanDuel. They don't always fill up. We would love to start seeing them fill up. And when they do, we will make them bigger. But it's an opportunity to win a little bit of money, beat my co-host, and have your name announced on the show because we announce the winners every week. So yeah, make sure you're checking out the links in the description, the links in Austin's article that'll be releasing today, Friday, and Kelly's article that we're releasing tomorrow, Saturday. We like to start the show off with what we call answers to the test, and that's taking a look at last week's winning lineup. The Millionaire Maker scored 238 points. No surprise on the the touchdown, which is correct. The quarterback and tight end, lots of touchdowns there. Patrick Mahomes, Jahmyr Gibbs, Diontae Foreman, Cortland Sutton, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Josh Downs, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, holy shit, and the Browns. So I'm actually going to start with Kelly on the takeaways here, because Kelly, you actually advocated for a 2 tight end set last week, and Mark Andrews was one of those tight ends, and a 2 tight end set took down the Millie Maker.
Oh my goodness. If there ever was a week to do that, it was last week for sure. Although I might be saying that again this week and every week.
You know what? I love it though, because you have fallen into a niche. You love the tight ends. And to be honest, the ones you pick perform well. I cursed Luke Musgrave last week because I picked him as my stream of the week. So he was bound to get hurt. This is now 2 for 2 that I put Luke Musgrave as my stream of the week, and he was injured. So I'm just not good for Luke Musgrave.
No, I think we picked him too, didn't we?
Oh, I need to go back and look at that if we've now double cursed him each time. I love it.
He was very inexpensive and projected to do quite well. So it wasn't, difficult to make that. But I will say Mark Andrews, definitely such a great week for him, climbing back up to T1 anytime now. Definitely, I am ready for so many people to eat crow who told me that he was not going to be the top receiver on the Ravens. Yeah. And I'm like, sirs, he's been the top receiver 4 out of his 5 years. Actually, I'll say 3 of his 5 years because he was missing like 30 yards one season. But still, come on now.
Yeah, I love it. And you wrote an article to that effect.
I did. Where I'm like, eat it.
Yes. Austin, we saw chalk at quarterback and tight end. I'm pretty mad at myself. I've been trying to like bargain bin shop at quarterback and tight end. And I had this feeling last week to go Mahomes and Kelce, but that's not even what I want you to talk about. I want to look at not 1, not 2, but 3 rookies make the list. Are we hitting a point in the season where rookies are becoming more viable plays?
Yes. I mean, rookies will come on more throughout the season. Gibbs. I got there.
Yeah. Jameer Gibbs, Jackson Smith, and
rookies. They just all feel like they've been around so long now.
Exactly.
Like,
it's been 7 weeks.
84 years.
Yeah.
But I think a little bit of this too is like the opportunities opened up. Like David Montgomery's hurt, so that opened up opportunities for Jameer Gibbs. And also Craig Reynolds was kind of beat up as well. So like they weren't using him as the like in between the tackle guy like Detroit typically does. DK Metcalf was hurt. Opened up opportunities for JSN. And then Josh Downs, I think he's just like, I don't know what it is. Gardner Minshew loves him. Like,
certainly does.
So there's something happening there. So yeah, a little bit like rookies will come more into play as the season moves on, which is why like getting in on rookies at the right time is really key, because like all of these players, they were going to be priced more cheaply than they probably will be moving forward as the DFS sites start to be able to better predict rookie production.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, and something we always talk about early in the season is rookies are always way too cheap. But maybe we're just wrong, because they don't tend to perform until week 7, and then the pricing catches up with them and everything blows up in our face. All right, guys, let's get into the week 8 slate. Top of the class, these are the players above $8,000 that we're targeting in cash. You're going to hear that from Austin, and in tournaments from Kelly. Austin, go ahead and get us started with a familiar face, last week's slate breaker.
Yeah, so we're not going to change anything. We're basically going to just like use the recency bias and say it's going to work out for us again this week. We're going with Travis Kelce, or I like to call him Travis Kelce, but I'm trying to not.
So I have been watching so much New Heights lately, and I'm just going to completely throw the show off here. I heard the story where they are Kelce 100%. When they refer to their own dad, they call him Papa Kelce, and 100% they have changed their own name. They are the only faction of the Kelce family who pronounces their name Kelce. And it basically got started because, if I remember this correctly, their dad's boss pronounced it incorrectly. Their dad never corrected him, and that is something they just held on to. Very interesting story that they shared on New Heights.
That is so fascinating. Well, now I don't know what to do, because if I go with what they're doing, then I don't know anything about fantasy football.
Yeah,
but
I did love that.
Anyways, so we're going with Travis Kelce. He's 8,400 on DraftKings. He's 9K on FanDuel. And my first note is, do I really need to explain this? Like, he just popped off, and Denver has been really bad against tight ends, even when they kind of withheld Kansas City a few weeks ago to like 18 points. Like, they still gave up a ton of DraftKings points to Travis Kelce. Denver's been averaging 21.1 DraftKings points per game to opposing tight ends since week 4. And in that same period of time, Travis Kelce's increased his target share to 28.7%. It was at 26%. He's just getting peppered with targets. And I think if you can pay up for him this week, which I think this is a good week to pay up for him, is part of the thing too. Like the rest of the slate context, there's a lot of mid-range and cheap options that I really like this week. And so it makes it easier for me to pay up for Travis Kelce.
I like it. And Kelly, you're gonna continue the stack here. You got Patrick Mahomes as your high price guy this week.
I do. It was very interesting in looking at quarterbacks and who to play this week. But one thing I did like was Patrick Mahomes. While he is super pricey this week, he is also what we would still call a value pick, because he's going to bring the value. And a lot of times we associate a value pick with an inexpensively priced player, but that's not always the case. You need to see, what are they bringing to the table? Well, Patrick Mahomes is expected to bring 24 fantasy points to the table this week. And if you're drafting him on DraftKings, there's actually fewer people for some reason on DraftKings willing to pay up than they are on FanDuel. You're looking at a mid to high range rostership and pricey on both platforms, regardless.
Yeah.
But you're going to get the points.
And that was what I noticed when I was doing my own DFS rankings for the week. Was I think it was, you could, if you want to throw Josh Allen in, and obviously that would be a primetime slate. But when you look at the top like 4 quarterbacks in fantasy right now, they also had the 4 best matchups.
Yep.
Josh Allen, obviously, but then Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. So it's a good week to pay up at quarterback, Kelly.
It is. And that's kind of the point in my article too. And I was mentioning before we went live, it's if you want these best matchups, and it kind of falls in line through running backs and wide receivers and tight ends even as well. These great matchups, they're not all so high priced, but your quarterbacks definitely are. And they're bringing the points.
So my question to both of you two is easy. I'm going to start with you, Austin. In cash, is it a viable strategy to stack the Chiefs again this week?
I think so. I probably won't because it's so expensive, and there's not enough cheap options at receiver and running back that I feel great about as compared to last week. A lot of the kind of like low end priced guys have now gotten priced up because they've been getting enough targets. So I probably won't use that strategy in cash just because there's some value I like elsewhere. It also depends a little bit on the platform. I'm more likely to do that on FanDuel because of the way their pricing structure works. I like some of the value I'm getting more on FanDuel this week than on DraftKings. Now in tournaments, it's a different story. I'd probably do it because not a lot of people are going to want to do it, but Kelly can speak more to that.
I think it's more viable to stack a Mark Andrews with a Lamar Jackson than it is a Travis Kelce with a Patrick Mahomes this week.
Color me surprised. Kelly thinks it's better to play Mark Andrews than Travis
I'm
Kelce.
not just being biased. There's data.
Not to mention there's salary value still,
And
because
salary.
Mark Andrews is performing to Kelce's level-ish, but he's certainly not costing Kelce dollars yet. So
no, sir.
I love the ish you threw in there.
I'm a big Travis Kelce guy. She's a big Mark Andrews girl. We're always going to butt heads. The long and short of it is we like the best 2 tight ends in fantasy football, plain and simple. So, next category is band nerds. These are the $6,000 to $8,000 players. We say these are the people who spend a little bit too much time practicing their instrument to make it to the top of the class. Kelly, go ahead and get us started here.
Travis. I say Etienne. Is that right?
I say Etienne as well. I just say it like the 3 letters, mainly because that's the easiest thing to type as well. So.
It feels good. Let's go with it. Travis Etienne this week. I really like it. Last week, he happened to be the first player in their franchise history to rush for 2 touchdowns in 3 straight games.
Interesting.
So if you like prop bets, this might be your opportunity to do an anytime touchdown scorer for Travis Etienne this week. Don't go crazy and say he's going to get another 2. I'm good for 1. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's the right matchup for it.
7.2 on DraftKings, 8.7 on FanDuel. So creeping up there, kind of pricey, but again, in line with what we discussed. Great matchup. And bringing the points, we're looking at a projected 16.3 on DraftKings, 14.8 on FanDuel. And rostership, surprisingly, is on the lower end right now, projected at 5 to 6% on both platforms. And I'm guessing it's because of that pricey salary. So if you can afford it, squeeze him in.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because he and the guy Austin's about to mention are mid-tier salaries. Though they both kind of rise up there a little bit on FanDuel. They're more mid-tier on DraftKings. They're mid-tier salaries, but they don't quite allow you to spend up at quarterback and tight end, which is obviously what I want to do. Austin, I was going to point out that your player now brings us to our 3rd player of the show where we're arguing about name pronunciation.
Yeah, so Alvin Kamara. That's how I say it. I hope that's right.
I think I say Kamara just because I'm wrong, but I think it is Kamara. But hey, that's the theme of the show this week.
Cool. If somebody wants to tell me the right one, I do want to have the right one, but
Yeah.
I'm going with Kamara until I learn otherwise. He is 7,300 on DraftKings and 8,300 on FanDuel. And the idea here is he's just getting so many targets that it's worth it. Like he could he could get 7 catches this week. And if he gets 7 catches for 30 yards, like he's already well along his way to paying off his salary. Also, the Indianapolis Colts have really struggled against running backs in recent weeks. They've given up the 2nd most points to the position since week 4, which is actually kind of surprising to me. I don't tend to expect Indianapolis to be a team that's giving up a ton of points to the running back position, but I like the matchup this week. I will say this is a little bit more of a DraftKings play for me than it is on FanDuel because I feel better about Kamara getting a bunch of catches. I don't feel great about his chances of getting in the end zone because I don't trust this offense, and we really need that on FanDuel.
I like that a lot. One thing I noticed this week, I am of the firm belief that RB catches are an offensive stat, not a defensive stat, meaning that the offense is going to do what they're going to do. The defense isn't going to dictate that. And interestingly enough, while the Colts give up, I believe, if I remember my research correctly, the 4th most points to running backs, they actually give up the 9th fewest RB receptions. And what that tells me is they're already getting beat up without playing teams that are going to throw to their running back. Now they're going to get it doubly because Alvin Kamara is going to be a part of that passing game. So I like that pick a lot. It's going to be hard for me to exclude him from any lineups this week.
There's probably also some game script stuff involved in that. Like Indianapolis is probably the one playing from behind most of the time, or they're playing close games. And so maybe the other team is able to just run out the clock more on the ground. Maybe they're not getting as much pressure on the quarterback and blitzing as much. And so there's not a need for opposing offenses to do like screen packages to try and beat blitz packages. So there could be a little bit about the defensive scheme, but hey, it's all the more reason to love this matchup.
Exactly. It's going to work out well. As I'm looking at the show sheet a little bit more in depth, you guys have so many players in the bookworm section. So let's jump into it. These are the $4,000 to $6,000 plays. And we're going to need a lot of these because, as we mentioned, you've got to pay up at quarterback this week. So you're going to need to find these truly mid-tier players to fill your lineup. Austin, go ahead and keep us rocking with the bookworms, the players that are easily underestimated, but they're sharp.
You've gotten that right once.
Not one time. If I would not read, I would do great, but I have to try to get some of the clever things you put into the show sheet. But clearly, I can't read and talk at the same time.
Wait. I have a player in the wrong spot.
Oh, Kelly.
I'm sorry. It's the wine. So let's just rewind real quick because we have to.
Oh, I see exactly who it is now. Yes.
Mention Mark Andrews, 6.4K on DraftKings, 7.7K on FanDuel. 2 receiving touchdowns last week up against an Arizona defense that, while they are formidable, they are receiving some of the most allowing some of the most points to tight ends.
Yes, they are.
And this game could be the 5th in a row for Mr. Andrews for more than 60 receiving yards. That's a prop bet for you right there too.
I like it. And the issue I have is when you look at just flat out PPR scoring, Arizona is actually one of the worst against the tight end, meaning they're not allowing a lot. But I feel like we learned our lesson with that against the Browns a few weeks ago when Andrews had his best game of the season against the best defense in football. So I'm done when it comes to Mark Andrews. The matchup does not matter to me. If he fits in my lineup, I'm getting him in there because he's clearly, as Kelly has mentioned numerous times, the number 1 wide receiver in this office, without a doubt. And I think we all need to thank Kelly for giving me a second try at saying bookworms are easily underestimated. Nope.
Nope.
Austin, just go. $4,000 to $6,000 players. Underestimated.
We are unhinged this week. So the reason that
I've had nothing to drink.
Yep. The reason I have so many players in the bookworms category this week is this is the first week where I've only provided 1 player for the band nerds because there's not a lot of players between 6 and 8K that I feel like I have to have in my lineup this week for cash. There's a lot of players between the 4 and 6K range that I love, and I feel like they are providing more value for me. So first off, starting with none other than Dameon Pierce, who I just think has an incredible matchup this week. First off, like that's always going to be the first thing I'm looking at is the matchup. But some of this is also just a gut feeling. Like it just feels like it's time for him to pop off. I don't believe that he is going to be a one-hit wonder and have just this great rookie year and then not be as great this year. I don't buy into the Devin Singletary hype that he's taking over this backfield. I still believe in Dameon Pierce, and he's only 5,300 on DraftKings, 6,700 on FanDuel. Like, I love those prices on both platforms. And Carolina just continues to struggle against running backs. If Dameon Pierce gets into the end zone, like, that's going to feel super great. Maybe he does it twice, and then we're feeling really great on FanDuel.
They were my favorite team to pick on for my 2 touchdown special on the Wednesday shows, because they just were the first 3 games of the season. They gave it up. So
We don't coordinate this show. Like, this is not the first time this has happened where your 2 touchdown specials overlap with my running back picks.
Oh, my 2 touchdown special this week was AJ Brown, just to stick it to Josh. It probably should have been Dameon Pierce, but I wanted to be mean to Josh. So
that's hilarious.
It's a curse because I never get it right. That's the story there.
Oh, nice. Well, not on the 2 touchdown special is Diontae Johnson. I do not imagine him getting 2 touchdowns this week, but in his first week back, he had 6 targets, which translated to a 26% target share, which tells you a little bit about the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, that is only a 26, or that is a 26% target share on only 6 targets. Like, that is, those numbers do not match. This is like the Falcons offense we're talking about here. But Johnson is only 5K on DraftKings. He's 64K on FanDuel. Admittedly, I like this play more on DraftKings, where it's the PPR scoring, so him getting those targets is more useful. It's a 2.5 point spread this week. The Steelers are underdogs, so I imagine there's going to be a decent amount of pass volume. And Jacksonville has not been great at defending the pass game, so I think that this will provide opportunities for Johnson. Honestly, I think this could be a little bit of a pass-heavy matchup on both sides of the field. So I'm also interested in the likes of Christian Kirk and Cash this week.
I like it. And then you got a cheap quarterback option with a little bit of a contingency plan. So.
Yeah, so I am currently under the assumption that Brock Purdy seems unlikely to make it out of concussion protocol by game time on Sunday. It has been incredibly rare for players to enter the concussion protocol and make it through within a week since basically the midpoint of last season, when we had a lot more focus on concussions after Tua had his injury and went through his concussion. And so I think it's highly unlikely that Brock Purdy plays. If Brock Purdy plays, I'm playing Brock Purdy. I really love the matchup this week against the Cincinnati Bengals, who haven't been great against quarterbacks, and I don't really expect their defense to do well against quarterbacks. And honestly, like, Brock Purdy, if he does play, he's like in the 5K region on DraftKings, so he doesn't have to do much to pay off his salary to begin with, and he has so many weapons in that offense. Like, I feel confident in his ability to pay off that salary. Sam Darnold, though, you know, it feels so gross, but it just seems so right, because he's $4,300 on DraftKings. And if he ends up playing, like, he has to score like 12 points to pay off his salary. And I can do so much with the rest of that salary. I can get Travis Kelce in my lineup. I can get Alvin Kamara in my lineup. It's really freaking great. And it's a cheap quarterback in a Shanahan system. Like, I'm buying into the fact that Shanahan just makes quarterbacks right, even if they are like failed first overall picks. So
everyone but Trey Lance.
Yeah, that's a whole other segment.
Yeah.
If we do an NFL podcast one day, I will have my Trey Lance rant. But
there you go.
I like Sam Darnold for DFS Cash this week.
And training camp reports are very positive about Sam Darnold, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And I think a home game against Cincinnati is a perfect kind of like go get your feet wet kid sort of thing. I'm pretty happy with the matchup as well. Kelly, you got a running back and a wide receiver for us now that you no longer have a tight end.
I do. I like Breece Hall this week. If there's ever going to be a week for Breece Hall, let's say it's this week. I kind of feel that way about Garrett Wilson as well, but I didn't drop him in the show notes. But let's talk about Breece Hall. 5'9" on DraftKings, 7'2" on FanDuel. This Giants defense is just so poorly ranked. This is a great position for Breece Hall to be in to make a real impact. He's projected at 15 fantasy points per game this week. And it's so much in his favor that pretty much everybody's going to be adding him to their roster this week. So if your strategy is to zig when everyone else zags, this may not be the player for you. However, fun fact, which I love to throw in. This could be his third game in a row with 90 plus scrimmage yards and a rushing touchdown. So I like this price point for Breece Hall. I like the value that he's going to bring to my team. And this is a player that I would play and zig somewhere else.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting play. Like you said, it's the matchup. It's coming off of the bye week, so hopefully we get to see a more prepared Jets offense because, like it or not, Zach Wilson was still kind of thrown into the fire because you can't convince me there was a moment in the preseason where he thought he was going to be the starter. So he's been out there flying by the seat of his pants for 6 weeks, and so I like the pick a lot.
Alex Caruso happened to tweet on Twitter. The Breece Hall's next 4 games, New York Giants 6th most running back points allowed, the Chargers 10th most running points allowed, Vegas 13th most, and Buffalo 12th most. So Breece Hall could be your guy for the next several weeks.
Yeah, I really like that a lot, and I think we're going to learn a lot about the Chargers this week too. So I think that'll be an interesting kind of like test for Breece Hall. And then I love the wide receiver you have. Josh on our Monday show called Romeo Doubs a sell in fantasy. But then the more I thought about it, like he's the target leader. He had a touchdown robbed from him last week when it bounced off of his shoulder perfectly into the hands of Jaden Reed.
Yeah.
So I think he's a hold in an offense that maybe people don't want a big piece of. None of that matters in DFS. Just my opinion for redraft.
I think that opinion that's going around that he's a sell is affecting his DFS value as well. Where we're looking at rostership as low as 1% projection.
Wow.
And which feels really weird. His projected points per game also feels slightly low. 9.4 on DraftKings, 7.9 fantasy points per game on FanDuel, which is nothing to sneeze at. But for this week, this defense ranking 21st against wide receivers, 27th in general, depending on where you look at your rankings.
Exactly.
This is a bargain. 4.9K on DraftKings and 6.7K on FanDuel. That is a bargain for this player, for this matchup, for this rostership. So I'm in on this because, ready for the fun fact?
He's Mark Andrews in a Romeo Doubs mask.
I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you crazy kids. This could be his 3rd game in a row at home with 5 or more catches and 70 or more receiving yards. So let's just rack them up. That is going to be a great way for you to save some money this week.
Perfect. Kelly, I just want to give you fair warning. I don't want to make you self-conscious. You're getting very digital. Your voice is coming through okay, a little robotic. We have basically lost your camera view completely at this point. So nothing to be alarmed, just something to think about.
Okay.
So if I interrupt you, it's completely on accident. I do want to remind everybody as we get closer to the middle/end of the show, you can play DFS with Austin, Kelly, myself, a bunch of the Club Fantasy crew at DraftKings and FanDuel. There are links in the description of this video. $2 contest going on each week. The next category is, as I always mention, my favorite category, C's get degrees. These are the very, very cheap players under $4,000 on DraftKings that we think are going to be those perfect lineup fillers. Austin, get us started, buddy.
Yeah. So first off, I have Jake Ferguson, who is $3,600 on DraftKings and $4,900 on FanDuel. Now, to be fair, I'm playing Travis Kelce almost everywhere I can this week. But if you do want to cheapen, I think Jake Ferguson is a prominent part of the Dallas Cowboys offense, so he's a great option. I actually am contemplating a 2 tight end build on FanDuel, which I don't do often in cash.
Kelly rubbing off on you.
Yeah, I don't typically do it in cash. It's not something I enjoy doing, but I like doing it this week because I feel like Travis Kelce is like a must-have on FanDuel in particular, just because like he's probably going to score at least a touchdown and get probably 100 yards. And so I need him in my lineup. And to do that, I'm basically treating him as a receiver this week and then getting a different tight end on FanDuel. And that tight end is Jake Ferguson because he's cheap enough The Rams have been giving up the 4th most points to tight ends since week 4. Here's the list of tight ends involved in that, which I thought was incredible. First off, there was Connor Hayward, who did nothing last week, and yet the Rams are still giving up the 4th most points to the tight end position. So these other guys really did a lot. There was the combination of Trey McBride and Zach Ertz. They're decent combined together. I mean, maybe you put 2 of them together, you get 3/4 of a Travis Kelce. And then you got Dallas Goedert, who just went off and scored a touchdown against them. And then my favorite one of this, their matchups that they've had since week 4, is the combination of Kylan Granson, who was a waiver wire darling recently, I believe, Mo Alley Cox, and Drew Ogletree, who
nobody knew existed until 3 weeks ago. So.
Exactly. And who led the Colts in receiving yardage that day. Wild. So I feel good about Jake Ferguson at 3,600 on DraftKings. I also, you got to hear me out on this one. I threw in a defense. I'm thinking about the New England Patriots as an option in cash. They're 2K on DraftKings. They're 3,100 on FanDuel. I know, I get it. And Ryan, you hold your nose, but that's the point. You just hold your nose and click that button, and then don't think about it.
I just love that. I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on with the Miami Dolphins right now, but I love that we are telling folks, go ahead and gamble on the Patriots against the greatest offense in the NFL right now.
No, it's not about that. It's about you don't need much from them. Okay. I'm not. It's not about the Miami Dolphins.
Because you're not going to get it.
Exactly, but they allow me to do a lot elsewhere. Now, I will say, I'm playing the Atlanta Falcons if I have the salary for it, but on FanDuel, I just in my current cash split, I don't have the room for it, so I'm going with the Patriots. All I need is 6 points from them. They scored 5. They've scored 5 points last week when they played the Bills. Like if you wouldn't have played them against the Bills last week, but at this price, they would have been just fine against the Bills. They haven't had a negative point game as a defense yet this year, which is bonkers when you consider the fact that they gave up 38 points one week and 34, I think, another week.
Do you have it at your fingertips what they scored against the Dolphins when they met the first time?
That is a great question. I forgot that they already played.
I don't think it was bad.
Rivals
I think it was like
playing,
4 or 5 points. So
yeah, all of these division rivals are playing so early in the season that I keep forgetting that it's like, oh, we're already at the second matchup between these two teams. But I will continue stalling because now I have gotten to the Patriots and hit their game log. They scored 5 points against the Miami Dolphins.
There you go. So there you go. Exactly what you want from them.
So. Exactly. It's perfect. And I do think the Miami Dolphins are getting a little beat up. They've had some offensive line injuries starting to creep in, and I think that could provide the Patriots more opportunities to get some sacks. They only gave up like 20-something points to the Dolphins. And, when you're picking a DFS cash defense, like you don't really need to concern yourself too much with the points. Like what you're looking for is sacks and turnovers, because that can turn up into upside. And again, if they score you 0, that's fine. If they score you negative, then it's like, okay, that's a bummer. But if they score you 0 at their price, we're good.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where if you're really hell-bent on building a lineup around Mahomes and Kelce, you're going with the worst, cheapest defense possible. And a 0 is fine. Just take 10 points away from Mahomes and Kelce combined, and that's what your defense scored you, because that's what allowed that to happen. Kelly has switched to the hard wire. She's back with us in all glory. And Kelly, you got some cheap plays for us this week?
I got one, and I'm going to put it in my lineup for realsies. We are looking at freaking Dalton Schultz. Let's go with it. $3,900 this week on DraftKings, and he's projected for 10.2 fantasy points. What? I mean, depending on what you're looking at, one of my other sites is showing 9.8 or something like that.
Still very close. Yeah.
Very close. And when you look at the game logs, last week he brought in 12.1 fantasy points, 12.5 the week before, 10.2 the week before that. And we look at this week, I think we're in a good spot with Dalton Schultz. Why not? $3,900 left me money in my salary cap there, and I upgraded my defense. So just wait until we talk about that.
Oh boy. So we got I love that we just did an entire segment about downgrading your defense. And Kelly's like, I upgraded my defense.
I upgraded my defense because of Dalton Schultz.
I absolutely love it. All right, guys, before we get into their two lineups for this week and talk about who won last week, let's do prop quiz. This is brought to you by BetStamp. BetStamp funnels all of your betting and DFS needs into one place. They help you get the best bang for your bets. You can find their link in the description of this video, and they're going to help you see who is available in your state, what promos they have, and they're going to help you get all signed up there. We usually talk about player props here, and you can do those on BetStamp. And Austin, go ahead and get us started. Back-to-back bad weeks, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I told you it was coming. Like, there was no way I was going to sustain 70% hit rate. Last week, we went 1 of 7. So I am now 57% on the year, which I still feel good about, more than half. Like, let's rock with that. And I'm feeling good about this week. The lines have been moving favorably for me this week so far, which is always promising. We've talked about some of these players already. I have 5 picks this week. They're identical on both Underdog and Thrive Fantasy, so you can get either one of those.
That's the first time since you started doing this.
Yeah, it's interesting. They weren't identical at first, and then they all aligned. So I think the apps are starting to figure some things out this year. But we're starting with Breece Hall over 68.5 rushing yards. Kelly touched on Breece Hall earlier. I agree with everything she said. I love the matchup for him this week. This line started at 62.5, and it's been creeping up, so that's a promising sign. I'm taking 2 unders on 2 quarterbacks that I have a soft spot for, and I want them to succeed, but I don't think they're going to do it this week. First off, we got Jordan Love. I'm taking his under at 217.5 passing yards. This line started at 231.5 passing yards.
Oh my.
It has moved down a lot.
Yeah.
If it moves down below 210, I'm definitely no longer feeling comfortable with it. That feels like too big of a shift to me. But I do not like the matchup for the Packers this week because I think this offense has not been doing super great. And I think the Vikings defense is starting to like get rolling a little bit. They're putting pressure on quarterbacks pretty consistently. And without Christian Watson there to like push the ball, well, Christian Watson's been a little in and out of the lineup, I should say. He may play this week. I don't know if he's been ruled out yet, but he hasn't been 100%. And without having him to push the ball down the field, I do feel nervous about Jordan Love hitting his over this week. And also, like, the Vikings are a pretty decent team to run the ball on. And if the Packers can get back and establish the run the way they want to, I like Jordan Love hitting his under. I also love Desmond Ridder hitting his under of 217.5 passing yards, which this one's interesting because earlier in the year, we were talking about the Tennessee Titans being a pass funnel defense. Yeah. And in the past few weeks, it has been flipped. They are shutting down opposing pass games. They are one of the toughest matchups for quarterbacks right now in fantasy. So I actually am betting on the under this week. And then 2 more that I love. Got some overs in there. Ryan, you'll like this one since we're cursing AJ Brown. Taking his receiving over. I just love this matchup for Philadelphia this week. Like, the Commanders have been really bad against the pass game. I also kind of like Devonta Smith's over, but I didn't want to go too wild with multiple players from the same team. And then I alluded to this earlier. I'm taking the Christian Kirk over at 52.5 yards. This line's been like moving a little bit. It was at 53.5 earlier today and it moved down. So I don't quite know what's going on there. Maybe they're expecting Zay Jones to come back because I don't think he's been rolled out officially yet. But I do still like Christian Kirk's over, even if Zay Jones is in the offense, because he's good and they paid him.
One of Kelly's favorite things to do is talk about trends and chases of history. AJ Brown, I think I'm going to get this right. 4 consecutive games with 125 yards ties Calvin Johnson. So if he goes over $125 this week, he'll have the most 125-yard games in NFL history consecutively. So.
Yeah. And the Commanders have been getting eaten up by opposing number 1 receivers in particular.
And AJ Brown 4 weeks ago. So
right. And everybody remembers DJ Moore's 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. That was against the Commanders.
There you go. Kelly, you got some props for us this week?
I'm thinking about it. I'm putting together some of my favorites right now based on what we were talking about with the history of plays. I'm definitely going to go with Mark Andrews over 53.5 yards on DraftKings. That is one I'm going to play. I also like Travis Etienne as an anytime touchdown scorer, as we discussed. Another one that I'm playing with right now, Dallas Goedert. We're going to go with, well, the stat is going to be 5 or more receptions. So when we look here at receptions, hopefully that's in there. I'm sure it will be. Dallas Goedert, yardage, receiving yards. I don't want yards.
No, you want receptions.
There we go. Receptions. Over 3.5. Smash that.
Yeah.
Smash that on DraftKings right now. So even if you played those three, a 3-pick parlay, Dallas Goedert over 3.5 receptions, Travis Etienne, anytime touchdown score, and Mark Andrews over 53.5 receiving yards, you're looking at a 3-pick parlay plus 503. So go ahead and make some money based on historical stats this week on DraftKings.
No, I absolutely love that. And I put those into the show sheet for you as well.
Thank
All
you.
right. As we always do at the end of the show, the Valedictorian Shootout. Austin continues his dominance. 6-1. Beats Kelly 131-113 last week, but it was close. It was close with Kelly's 2 tight end set. So Austin 6-1, Kelly 1-6. As always, Austin, since you won, I make you go first. Go ahead and announce your lineup for me, buddy.
Yeah, so I guess I should have brought this up before the show, but can we have like a contingency rule that if Brock Purdy does play, that I can like change?
Oh,
my
100%.
lineup?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because I have Sam Darnold in my lineup right now.
Okay, so Darnold or Purdy. Yep.
Alvin Kamara at 7,300, Breece Hall at 5,900, Christian Kirk at 5,900, Diontae Johnson at 5K, Josh Downs at 4,800, Travis Kelce at 8,400, Dameon Pierce at 5,300, and then my Atlanta Falcons at 2,900.
All right. Wasn't sure if you were going to go Falcons or Patriots there. Kelly, what do you got for me?
I just realized I have a very Baltimore heavy roster.
Hey, in cash, that works. And if they go in and beat up on Arizona, it's going to work out really well for you. So.
I'm having such a conundrum. We have company coming in town, friends from Baltimore attending the game.
Oh, man.
It's going to be a good time. I'll be wearing my Ravens jersey, but I'm still tailgating at the Cardinals.
Oh, my goodness.
Don't tell. Okay. Lamar Jackson. I'm on the bus. Gus Edwards. We're going to get a little Chuba Hubbard in there.
Oh.
Had to save a little money.
I was going to say, there's got to be some pay-ups elsewhere if you're fitting Chuba Hubbard into your lineup.
I'm going a lot of mid-range here. Christian Kirk. But look, 5,900 is projected for 15.3. I like that a whole lot. George Pickens, kind of the same, 5,600 projected for 16.6 this week. So those are two. I don't know how you'd stay away from that. Yeah. Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, the Dalton Schultz play, which allows me
for Kelly again
to upgrade to the Ravens defense.
I should have put that together when you talked about the heavy Baltimore. So Kelly really banking on a week 7 repeat for the Baltimore Ravens.
Let's do it.
All right. Those are their lineups. If you've never tuned into the show, that will be the exact lineup Kelly plays in the contest against you folks. Austin will play something completely different. But if history serves, the lineup he announces on the show will fare better than the one he puts into the
That's true.
That's just how it works. As a reminder, there you go. I say, as a reminder, you can play with us. Links are in the description. We play on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Last week on DraftKings, CH Dallas, who I do not believe is Hallis because the H and the D are in the wrong order. So CH Dallas won our DraftKings contest with 159 points. Austin, so close, 155.7. Very good week. Austin and Kelly, for those who obviously aren't in our Discord, were shit talking backstage that they were finally going to do well in their own contest. So
and I did not.
Yep. And then is it Erdit? I don't know what your name is. ERTIT won the FanDuel League 127.3. This is their second win of the season. I would also like to point out, I've now think 4 consecutive weeks finished third in FanDuel, in DraftKings. So you can just pin that to my name. Folks, that is the end of our show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We have a lot of fun doing this. We like helping you guys in both cash and in GPP play. Kelly, tell everybody what you're working on, where they can find your work.
Oh gosh, too many things, but just follow along on the app formerly known as Twitter at Kelly and Phoenix, and you'll catch everything that's happening in this crazy life.
There you go. Austin?
Yeah, same deal. You can follow me on Twitter/X at Austin_FFL. I tweet out all of my stuff there, and just check out clubfantasyffl.com. It's where all my content is.
Perfect. And you'll also find 3 total DFS articles there every single week. Our DFS matchup report put together by yours truly. Actually, it's the people on this show. Austin's A-list focusing on cash. And then Kelly does you guys the greatest favor. If you're not able to listen to the entire show, or if you're a reader rather than a listener, Kelly puts this entire show sheet out there for you folks so you can see all of the picks in one great place. As an always reminder, if you were watching us on YouTube, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing. It means the world to us. What it really comes down to is, sure, Justin Jefferson might never play again, and you might lose Tyreek Hill too. Your redraft team is going to be crushed, but you can always count on a great DFS lineup. We will see you guys next week.